Now those of you that were worried we were gonna go an entire episode without fire, that ain't happening on this channel. Welcome back to the channel, guys, and today I'm gonna show you how to build and install a 3-link kit for your Unicorn Comanche. It will also work on a Cherokee. And we gotta start by picking this thing up. So the first thing we gotta do is remove the steering. And I've shown you guys this before, but the easiest way I found to get cotter pins out is just to use a set of side cutters, pry against it. You can get a good bite, pry against it, and it pulls it right out. All right, now one of the things I don't like using is a pickle fork, because pickle forks end up always ruining this rubber boot. The easiest way I've found is just give it a little tap, tap, tap with the hammer. It'll pop right down.
Just tap it in, give it a little tappy.
There it went. Had to give it a little more than a tap. Doing it that way also saves you from ruining your castle nut, because if you try to hit up here, you can mushroom the threads or anything else. So, little quick, fast trick of the day. Whew, got it. Man, those are tight.
Ow.
All right, well, that didn't want to come out. About time to torch it. So what I want to do here is loosen all the control arm bolts so that when we set this back down, we can just pop the bolts out and get the axle out. The problem is I'm pretty sure these upper bolts have been on here for over 30 years. They haven't been touched and they're extremely tight. This one's starting to strip out, so I'm gonna have to figure out if I can get it to free up or if we're gonna have to hit it with heat. Aren't old cars fun? All right, you dirty little bolt. Now you guys know I love fire as much as the next person, but I wanna try this new tool. Brand new to me. Now you guys have probably seen this around. This is 100% not a sponsored thing. I bought this off of eBay. I honestly don't even know how to use it yet, but I know what it does. This is a heat conductor. So this thing will actually cook our nut.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
Let me rephrase that. It's going to add heat, make the bolt hot, but without adding fire. If you can see there, that's all our fuel lines and brake lines. And last thing I want is to make fire around gas and flammable stuff. I think that goes in there. Then these, okay, just hold that. Makes sense, right? Sure. Wow, it's already smoking. Look at that. Huh. Whoa. I'm kind of nerding out. All right, let's give it a shot. Whew. Look at all that smoke. Yeah. We're getting somewhere. Yes. Woohoo! This is coming right out now. Dude, okay, I've spent like literally the last 10 minutes just stripping that nut out, and I'm like to the point where I didn't think anything would get on it, and I was gonna have to torch it. I think this thing might have just become one of the must-have tools for this shop. I've always been curious because you see all the videos, you never know if it's any good or not. But it definitely wasn't cheap, but that was 100% worth it because I didn't have a fireball under there, and it actually worked pretty quick too. Kind of shocked. I don't know if it's the fiberglass on here or if it's just the old bolt, but it kind of stinks. Like smell. If you had smell-o-vision, you'd be like, yeah, Colt, you're right, that stinks. All right, brake lines are pinched off because I'm not reusing those rubber ones. Got them disconnected. Control arms are all loose. Everything else is off, minus the shocks. That's literally what's holding this axle in. We're gonna go ahead and set it back down and remove the shocks. Perfect.
Now that Colt's got the shocks undone, he is going to remove the bolts for the control arms.
Cool, it didn't go crazy. Let's see what happens when I do this though. Hey, good deal. Now this thing did have a little 3-inch lift on it. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this really nice track bar drop bracket off, and I'll probably save that for another project. We'll definitely save that.
It's always nice whenever you can double use stuff from one project to another.
Now I'm gonna be doing a lot of custom work up in here, but I wanna make sure that I have these holes accessible to bolt back in, and I wanna make sure I keep these bolts down here bolted in, because this is actually part of the motor mount that's on the frame side, uniframe, whatever you wanna call it. I wanna make sure that if you don't put these back in, what happens is that it'll actually peel off the part of the frame, and I don't want that to happen. So what I have in front of me here is a bunch of stuff I got from Barnes 4-wheel drive. Now I have the long arm kit that I want to weld up, and I have this track bar bracket that I need to put on the axle. If you guys remember when I built that axle, I didn't set up anything for a track bar or upper control arms because I wasn't sure if I was going to do a 4-link or what my plans were at the time. Now the way I did this is I went ahead and used 2 Heims with the misalignment spacers, so this thing is nice and trued up. And then I just finger tighten the bolts so that we can get a good tack system on this thing, and I know that it's not twisted in any way, shape, or form. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove these Heims now and burn the rest of this in. I got a good set of tacks. I got a good couple really solid welds, so I know it's straight. It isn't gonna tweak now. Now we can go ahead and burn it in the whole way. Because you don't want to melt the Teflon out of these bad boys. One down, 500 more pieces to go.
Looks beautiful.
So I let everything cool off for a couple minutes. Now I have to adjust this because where I've set the mount here to lift this vehicle up is actually exactly where this new crossmember goes. On top of the fact that we gotta cut all this stuff off. Now I'm gonna try to do a pinch seam lift here, but let me show you a problem, especially with Jeep Cherokees and Comanches. This side is rotten McPoo-poo. So we'll try it. Hopefully it doesn't push through all the way. We'll do it with it a little closer to the earth so if things go bad, we'll be in at least a little better shape.
It's all close.
All right, it worked. I was trying to do this without bringing it all the way to the ground, but I was worried if I got a little too crazy, it might do that. I don't want to be that guy. Now that we have it loose, slide this back, and we will figure out how to pick this thing up. Okay, we're off of it.
There you go. Smarts.
I don't know about that, but something. So when you get stuff delivered from semis, a lot of times you get these little kicker boards that already have a notch in them for pallets so you can strap them down. So just add a little more notch to it, have it picked up by it. It seems safe-ish, but I am gonna go ahead and put something up front. Maybe get more of these. This won't go that high.
Oh.
Now, those of you that were worried we were going to go an entire episode without fire, that ain't happening on this channel. Fireball.
Smoldering. Success!
I know a lot of you watch this channel because you're budget minded like myself. And one of the ways that I save money is using an app called Upside. Upside is one of the most valuable things you could have on your phone for 2025. It's a free app that you can download on your phone. Upside has over 100,000 gas stations, grocery stores, and restaurants attached to the app that if you're an Upside app user, you can actually get cash back. And yes, it's real cash. No confusing rewards, points, or credits, just real cash going back to your bank account. And people earning up to 3 times more cash back than any other app out there. And while it's 100% free to sign up, you can use this QR code,
Download the free Upside app and use the code COLT.
and you're gonna get an extra 25 cents off per gallon for your first tank of gas. And I found that the average Upside app user is earning up to $280 a year. And when you got hobbies like this, $280 makes a difference. And it's super easy to use because all I gotta do is load up the app in the area I'm in, find the gas station, grocery store, or restaurant. You pull in, you fuel up, you pay for your fuel, you take a picture of your receipt, and start making some money back. That was easy. So if you're like me and you wanna make a few extra bucks, I'd suggest downloading the Upside app because I definitely don't think there's a downside to making a few extra bucks while you're getting stuff that you're gonna use anyway. We all gotta eat, and you know I'm always buying gas. Comanches have extra supports that Cherokees didn't have. Number 1, for their lower control arms. 2, while it's hot, I'm just going ahead and trying to scrape some of that undercoating off because it's a little bit easier to scrape off when it's warmed up. Also, this is my number 1 pet peeve about safety glasses is when I wear safety glasses, I feel safe. While I was trying to pry that piece off, a chunk of metal shot me and hit me right in the corner of my eyeball. Now, let me show you. How does it hit me in the corner of my eyeball? Right there. Safety glasses still drive me nuts too. All right, next thing I gotta do is take the crossmember out of the suspension. So the biggest thing there is just holding up the T-case. So I got the T-case supported, but I already noticed I'm gonna have some issues. See that bolt? There's no bolt head. There's a bolt on that side, but not on that side. And then there's one there. That one's loose and crooked. This could be interesting. First thing I'm gonna do is take these off though. Always 13 millimeter. That was loose.
Ooh.
Yucko. Now, I'm not sure about this one specifically, but I have seen a few of these made out of aluminum and a few of these made out of magnesium, which is kind of interesting. Ugh. More power.
Can I get a more power, baby? A more power, baby!
More power.
More power.
Don't need that. All right, time to get this stud out. I'm gonna try my tool again. Look at how red that bolt's getting.
Oh, wow. Oh, it's like lava.
Isn't that crazy?
That's cool.
Oh, it's wiggling.
Wow.
Gonna be a fighter. Man, oh man, this is one of those old school studs. These were the worst. It's out now. I'm gonna go clean up a little bit because I feel like I've been eating metal. And then, yeah, we'll come back and start grinding so I can eat some more metal. All right, guys, I came back in and some gremlins must have grinded and cut all this stuff off. Not really. I did it. In fact, if you know those gremlins, send them my way. I'd pay them to do all that grinding because that was horrible. But cleaned up now. Everything is smoothed out. We got our pile of stuff. It's time to bolt up a long arm kit, but first I want to put this on. I was gonna make one, and I found a guy that makes these on eBay, and I figured, heck, let's give it a shot and see how he looks, and doesn't look too bad. It actually looks pretty decent. So this is my transmission mount, and yeah, I plan on doing polyurethane on everything, so this is a nice little setup. He even knows that some of these come offset and some of them are centered, and he asked if it was offset, and I said yes, and look at that. Perfect setup. Sometimes it's worth finding somebody that already makes something, and then you don't have to. Go to the pile that don't needs. All right, set this up here, and I'm just barely touching this exhaust. So I'm gonna go ahead and massage that out. And by massage, I'm just gonna beat it with a ball peen hammer. Where'd I put my ball peen hammer? There it is. Fixed. And I know some of you drag car racers are like, you just killed like 2 horse pressures. Well, I'm not too worried about the horse pressures in this thing anyway. Now we have this one, but because of that brace that the Comanche comes with, all of our lines are bent right in the way of where our upper control arm goes. So we got to modify all those lines. All right, close enough-ish, I think. That's bad. Dang. All right, that is a lot of feeding, but we'll get there. Just take me a minute. This is definitely a chore. I got these all fed back, and then I just bubbled the ends out back here where it'll be behind the upper control arm. So there it is. That was a lot of bending. Most of the time I used my thumb, but I did use this as well to kind of cheat it over where I needed to cheat it over. That fuel line doesn't bend easy. That looks pretty darn good. Now we can put our crossmember in. Okay, so 2 things. I messed up because I forgot that I had just set this, and I had forgot that my transfer case was actually dropped. So once I raised it up, I didn't need to massage this exhaust, but it's massaged now. Secondly, This crossmember bracket here, the control arm bracket basically, is designed for you to already have your subframe stiffeners on. So your frame stiffeners that you get from Barnes or anybody else, it's already designed to have that in there. So that extra 1/4 inch is making this thing sit too tall. On top of that new transmission mount that actually raises it another 1/4 inch. So now I'm trying to push the transfer case into the floorboard. That can't work. So I'm going to have to lower my brackets on the sides here, which is fine. I went ahead and took some measurements of this. This is the bracket that goes on it as well. This is designed for a Cherokee, number 1, so I have to notch this chunk out. Secondly, this is if you were gonna bolt this on. My intent with these is once I get them lined up to where this crossmember bolts in, I'm welding them in. Like if they're not coming out, I want my control arms to be as braced as possible. And I'm gonna use this piece as well. So let's cut some brackets. I already made my file. Subframe into, look at that. Bring it over here. So we have a start. Kind of get close so I know where I'm at here. Waste the least amount of material as possible if I can. Not really sure. I think it's considering that center, so I'm gonna put it about here. Manual move, 0, escape, cut, enter. So much easier than me making it. But I did make it. Just all right, so we now have our drop brackets. Now I can go ahead and take these back off. I'm gonna clean up more of the frame, uniframe, so that we can weld them on. I'm gonna go ahead and bolt them in, we'll weld them on, and then we will pull the bolts back out, bolt this in, get crossmember in, and weld all that on. So, yeah, order of operations. I love doing things twice, by the way, so, you know, take it apart, put it back together, take it apart, put it back together. Yeah, so fun. We got it bolted up. Now I can go ahead and weld all of that in, because I'm just gonna weld it all in, because I want it there for forevers. And I'm already dirty again. I think I've been huffing that stuff. All right, got this thing all welded in. I know what you're thinking. You're like, Colt, that's the part that goes on the outside. And I get that, but I'm gonna have it on the inside, like I said, because I'm gonna weld my control arm brackets on. So I need that extra space. I need that 1/2 inch of space because, like I said, this lift kit is designed with this space plus the lift on that cross member. So now I can bolt my control arm brackets back on, and then we can get it set, hopefully be able to burn that in next. I have everything kind of just loosely put together. I picked up the center. Now I want to go ahead and tighten up each side of this thing. That way we know it's tight, then I can tighten these up, and then we can weld our lower control arm brackets on. All right, so I'm not sure if it's the Barnes crossmember or this bracket I bought from eBay, but I'm gonna probably put money on the bracket from eBay. It is pushing everything forward. You can see it here, how this thing's twisted this way. You can even tell here in my motor mount that it's pushing it forward on both sides here. So I don't want that. That means I gotta pull that cross member back out, or maybe I can just undo this bolt. Or what I'm gonna try to do is take this bolt out, take these brackets off, maybe I have enough to pick up the T-case a little bit where I can slide this out. I'll cut it, slot those holes so that it'll mount more farther forward. One modification creates 10 more, so my dad always said. Now I get to do it again. You can feel it wanting to go backwards. There it went.
Oh gosh.
That's how it should sit. That's how far off that thing is. Man. Modify. I'm gonna say, don't buy one of these. Just find the Daystar one. All right. It's hard to tell. You can see that's nice and straight now. So we modified the modified things and modified it. Yeah. All right, now I can do what I originally wanted to do, which is weld the control arm brackets on. Now the reason I'm doing that is number one, because Barnes is like a few companies that I know that are smart enough to make a cross member that unbolts. So once that cross member unbolts, if I need to pull the transmission, pull a T-case, anything like that, I can just pull that center section out, move everything out of the way. So I can weld the control arms in. That is one of my major issues with cheap long arm lift kits. If you cannot remove that center section, then when you have to drop to get your transmission apart or something like that, then you end up having to drop your entire suspension and then your axle twists, and it's a whole disaster as opposed to just being able to drop that center section out, get your stuff out, leave your suspension alone, which is the way it should be. All right guys, so I was welding and I messed up. I dropped my trigger and I broke my welder. So this thing's pretty old, not overly shocked, but we got to try to get this out. It's a new day now because obviously nobody had anything last night. I did find some stuff this morning. I couldn't find a whole new trigger assembly, but I did find a liner. The problem is I have to try to get the nozzle apart to get the liner out. Yeah, it's gonna be a trick. See if I can get this part out. Oh yeah, that's nice and loose. Perfect. Didn't even have to fight it. How about that? All right, so I pulled out my old liner and I laid out my new one right next to it here. So they're matched up on this end. I come over here and I'm gonna need to cut this right there. So we'll mark that. That way I know how much I need to cut. The other way you can do it is feed it through and then cut it, but I'm gonna do it now because I already know that fits it. The liner isn't damaged. I'm just replacing it because it's probably 20 years old. Might as well do it all at the same time. All right, if you never put a welder liner in, you want your line as straight as possible, and then you just gotta feed it. I spray a little WD-40 on it to try to hope that it'll slide better. I've heard of guys using like petroleum jelly and things like that as well, but hopefully it'll go through okay. Right at the trigger. I just got to get it through it. Come on. All right, we got the liner all the way in. I got the little lock nut back on. We can slide our stuff back together. I guess I need to put this on first, but let's see if we can get our MIG wire through here now. Hopefully this thing will weld right again. Yeah. Oh yeah, if you guys don't mind, do you mind just going down and double check and make sure you're subscribed to this channel? It's free, it doesn't cost you anything, and it helps me out to keep making videos for you guys. Sometimes every now and again, YouTube will stop subscribing or they'll actually even kick off the reminder button that videos came out. So Tuesdays and Saturdays are our two main days. Thanks. I can finally get back to work. You know how that goes. I feel like mechanics have to have more patience because like when something goes bad, things just keep going bad. And it's like you just got to deal with it, makeshift stuff, customize your customization, and then your tools that you count on break. It's just like a steamroll effect, right? Especially when you're on a deadline. Either way, I'm ready to get this thing done. Now what you might have noticed is I rolled the Dana 44 axle over here. If you remember that video, that's this one. I built it originally for the Pacer. That whole project's gonna change way down the road. So now we have this nice Yukon geared and axled 488 gears that I put in, alloy axle shafts, grizzly locker. The only thing I still need to do is change these out back to 8 lug, which is what this axle originally was. I need to figure out where I'm gonna put my upper control arm bracket along with my track bar bracket. Now, if you guys are familiar with a track bar, you know that that goes from one side of your frame to the other side of your axle. That keeps your suspension from going side to side, basically your body or your axle moving side to side. Ideally, you always want your drag link in line with your track bar. But one of the other things that a lot of people seem to forget is you also want the longest track bar you can possibly fit. Reason for that being is that's gonna keep your rig as level as possible. And the flatter your track bar is, the better it's gonna work. Therefore, a normal Jeep track bar sits about right here on the axle. I'm gonna bring it way out here. I already welded together an aftermarket track bar mount from Barnes, but what I wanna see is what it's gonna take to put it about right here. Obviously, I can still get my bolt for my coil over here, and I can put any bolt in here for the track bar. But this has to be nice and strong, plus we wanna clear our drag link. I'm not gonna use this back hole, so I'm not too worried about it, but this one I will use. First thing I think I wanna do is cut this off, just right here and here. That way I have a nice smooth weld for this whole thing on both parts there. Then we'll figure out our base. All right. We got a nice straight line. Right. Alright, so I just cleaned these up, but what I made here are some weld washers. One of the things that just went into my brain is that I'm not running coils, I'm running coilovers. So all of the weight of the entire front suspension is going to be held on by a little 1/2-inch bolt. It's crazy that that works, right? That actually holds up. What I do want is I don't want just this one plate taking all the brunt force. So I'm going to do a weld washer here, bam, like that. Then it'll have some beef. Pretty true. A little more. Howdy ho. Yeah. Now you can see I wanted to get that weld washer on before I got the track bar bracket on. It's gonna clear our drag link, and we're gonna have all of the track bar length going across here. So even if I have my other one lower, and let's say this drag link sits like that, we want the track bar sit like that, I need to get this plated, and then I'm gonna plate this up to here on each side as well. All right, we're gonna play a little game. I drew out kind of what I want, and I put it out here on Fusion, so we'll see what's closer. Oh man, look at how much better. This is straight. Ooh, and that's my crappy drawing. Yeah, buddy. Come here. Oh yeah. Perfect. Oh yeah. We got the beef. All right, so I hit everything with a little spray paint. I figure if you spray it on while it's hot, it like powder coats it, like seals in there. I don't know. I got the patience of a squirrel when it comes to painting. Leave that to Robbie. Now, I'm gonna move the axle up under the Jeep. I need to move the axle down to ride height, and then we'll try to bring the Jeep to ride height. That way we can start measuring our control arms. This should be the lighter side. Theory. I'll measure the hub height and see if that's still our 17 inches. That's 23. I'm gonna have to bring it down a bunch. So, I have to change jack stands. Darn it. So I kind of got the axle set, and I have it set about where I want it, front to back, and about at the angle I want. Now, you gotta remember that I don't have my upper control arm bracket on yet, but I do want to measure my lower control arm. So I'm gonna measure each side, see what they look like, and that'll tell me how true my axle is to the body. But you can kind of see here that I have it pretty vertical with the original coil bucket, which is what I want, which is gonna move the axle forward about an inch, inch and a half. I have it pretty trued up between left to right, so it's close enough to get a measurement anyway.
37 3/8. Should be pretty good right there.
All right, time to make the lower control arms, and Shanna came in to help out. One of the things I love about Barnes is all their lower lengths are 250 wall, quarter wall, DOM. That's really the minimum of any lower control arm, in my personal opinion. Now they give you these beefy 1.25 inch heims, and what I'm gonna do is just set this up. I have it kind of like that because I feel like I should probably only need to see this much thread, but there's a lot of adjustment if I wanted to come out with it. I can set it in here. Come on. Set it in there. There we go. And that's gonna give me my measurement to the end of tube. I'll know the difference there, and I'll subtract that out of this side to get my 37 3/8 lower control arm length that I got. Now yours might be longer. You gotta remember that I raised my lower control arm bracket, so everything under my axle is flat instead of having it down at an angle. So I have all my clearance flush with the bottom of my axle tube. That is 3 3/4 inches. When I say 37 3/8, you can go center that. 37 3/8. Somehow lost my Sharpie out of my pocket again. Give me that Sharpie on the welder, Shanna. Then I can just deduct my 3 3/4 out of that. We'll cut this tube off. We'll match the other one the same. We'll be good to go. So one of the things I like about Barnes 4-wheel drive is they give you a tapered weld-in bung. And I'm gonna go ahead and put this in and put it on the other side, a left-hand one. And one of the things I've always wondered, if this is a bung, does that make this a bung hole? Anyway, Barnes gives you 2 right-hand ones and 2 left-hand ones. And if you're ever unsure of what's what, outside of the obvious color distinction, this is a regular right-hand thread. See how it's nice and smooth. You see how this nut is nice and smooth. Those are right-hand threads. When they're left-hand threads, you can usually find a little notch in here. You see that little notch right there and these little notches on the nut. That means these are left-hand threads. Now I want to do one right-hand and one left-hand on each control arm. That way if I need to adjust it underneath, I don't have to unbolt it to adjust it. So it's gonna come in handy for this application for sure. And right here you can see, because of that taper, how you can get a nice good root pass weld in there, because you're gonna wanna get a good root pass and then a second weld on here, especially for a lower control arm.
So what Colt's done is he has wrapped the threads in blue tape, and that will hopefully prevent slack from getting on the threads while he welds.
One of the other reasons why I like these long heims is that I can probably weld this in without even worrying about getting to this Teflon, but you do want something in these threads when you weld them on.
So why could the Lily not ride her bicycle?
Because her pedals were broken.
All right, guys, I have all of my control arms here that are measured and painted. Now, I still haven't put the upper link mount on the axle yet. I'm gonna put these links together on top of this showed up. This is the skid plate from Barnes that you can bolt on and actually protect your T-case a little bit as well. Now, if you've ever built or installed control arms of any kind that have a removable joint, you know exactly what I'm talking about if you've ever tried to adjust them later, is that they end up getting rusted stuck. Now, one of the tricks I have before installing a new joint is I will always put some anti-seize on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and thread this on. I'm gonna put some anti-seize on this end before I thread it in. I'm gonna put a little bit of anti-seize inside the internal threads, and then I still have one more trick to show you after that. Boom, perfect. That's a lot. Don't need that much, just like that much. Can't do this without getting this stuff everywhere. All right, so now that I have this side in, one of my tricks here before putting the anti-seize and this one in is I like to take some WD-40 and spray it inside this tube. Not only is it gonna help prevent rust, but it's actually gonna help fight any condensation or anything that actually could sneak in through the threads. Now, you don't have to use WD-40. This isn't a sponsored thing, I just have WD-40. So use your heart's desire of some sort of water displacement / penetrant oil, whatever you want. There we go. Now, I'll still put anti-seize on this heim, but that's gonna help keep this thing from ever rusting out from the inside. Oh, lefty Colt, there we go. Oh, we want 37 3/8. 37 3/8. 37 3/8. Perfect. Look at that. Oh yeah. So what I want to show you guys real quick is, number one, why long arms are so crucial to a good ride, but also to flex and stability and everything else. And then there's a couple little things that you need to pay attention to when you're doing your own long arm kit. So a short arm, here's a short arm kit. My arms are like this. I hit a rock like this. What's gonna happen is, instead of this suspension going up like it should, it's gonna try to go in to the cab. So you're actually gonna get that vibration. It's gonna do this when you're hitting it, and it's not gonna flex well. With a long arm kit, I go over this rock. Now it's actually gonna go up over that rock. The load is gonna go backwards towards the center of the rig, so it's gonna make for a better ride, but also better suspension flex and geometry. And the flatter your lower links are, the better it's gonna be. So that's something to always keep in the back of your mind if you're building your own suspension, or if you even buy a kit and you wanna put it on, you wanna try to get those links as flat as possible. Those lower links are what makes and breaks the ride quality and the traction and suspension geometry of a rig. All right, I need you. Ugh. Now, this is obviously quite a bit higher than your normal upper control arm bracket. I already know that I can't have this all the way at this height, so I'm gonna have to cut this off here and have only 3 bolt hole access. I'll probably shoot for the middle hole, but I can't risk having this height on this rig. Now, the reason I chopped this down is because of just eyeballing it, I could tell it was way too close to the engine mount. So knocking that 1.5 inches off, that gives me enough clearance now where I'm not too worried about it feeding up in there. That shouldn't be too bad. I also went ahead and made up some 90-degree gussets for this thing because I know it's going to need a little bit of support on each side, especially because all of the axle torque is going to be on that upper link. Alrighty. There's one. Booyah. Just like that, we got some gussets. So Barnes gave me these links for the upper part of this 3-link. The nice thing about these is they actually ride nicer. They're a lot quieter. And so I went ahead and hit it with a grease zerk already. Hopefully I don't have to mess with these. You know, like Heims, after a while, sometimes you gotta spray them with a little WD-40 or something. Shouldn't have to with these. So did the anti-seize and the penetrant oil in there. So it's nice and smooth. Let's go ahead and set it in and see what we got. Oh yeah. Perfect. Definitely can't have gloves on. Ugh. Huh. Future reference, I will weld a nut on this plate on the back side if I built this again. That way I'm not having to try to fight it to find it. All right, we got it. You're getting there now. Yes sir, yes sir. Look at that. Have to really pay attention to my drive shaft here. Make sure it clears this arm, but I think we'll be good. Now let's check that. That's still good. I got this thing tacked in. Now I want to double check all my clearances and make sure everything is good, because once I burn it in, it's in. I think that's the best spot, because you got to think the axle, when it flexes up, is going to go up this way, and we need to make sure everything's going to clear, including the drive shaft. I feel like that's our best spot there. All right, we now have our long arm kit. And I did cycle it up and down, made sure everything was clear as far as that goes, but that isn't gonna matter a whole lot for me yet because I don't have my coilovers in, my coilover brackets, track bar, anything like that. But we got the whole front end out, got the new front end in, got our suspension built, and our 3-link in. So now I can measure my drive shaft so I can get that thing coming, along with starting to figure out ride heights and all that fun stuff, which will be on the next video. So appreciate you guys watching.
Make sure you like and subscribe and get yourself some swag.